What's your name and how many years have you been locked up?
My name is Jamie Fight. This time I did 3 years on an 8-year sentence. About 4 years ago, I did 14 months in state jail in East Texas, and then about in 2005 through 2006, I did another year in state jail. So total, I've been locked up probably 5 years, plus 10 years for adjudicated probation many years ago. So I've spent a lot of time in my adult life locked up.
Why did you choose to come to Kingdom Towers as opposed to either go to a state-ran halfway house or even to your home?
Well, like I said, I did state jail twice. Both times, I basically went home, straight home, which put a burden on my family, my wife, and kids, because I got out and really had to start over. I've got a business degree from Texas A&M Commerce that plus I've got 13 felonies, so they kind of offset each other, if that makes sense. But so I've got education, I've got lots of job skills, but rushing right home never worked because I didn't have a plan, no plan whatsoever. Mainly didn't have God in that plan. I thought I could do it myself. This time I was approved to go home, which is Bowie County, Texarkana, or that area anyway. I was approved to go there, but it just did not feel right because I knew I would get there, wouldn't have a vehicle. 20 to 30 minutes to any kind of AA meeting, Celebrate Recovery, 30 minutes to the parole office. It would be, a 30-minute drive to go to work. Where anything was going to be 30 minutes one way with no vehicle. So that would put a tremendous burden on my wife to have to basically, baby me around here and there because I would walk out fresh and wouldn't have anything. So I heard about Kingdom Towers while I was in prison at the Montford unit here in Lubbock, and heard nothing but good things. And it was obvious through the correspondence I had with Steve here, and with things that I had heard while I was in prison that this place was full of God. God was in charge here. So I had written letters here. I was actually accepted to a halfway house. I think it was Adam's house in San Angelo. Had heard good things about it too, but it just did not feel right. So I wrote several letters to Kingdom Towers. This is after my address at home was already approved. So I had a release date. I knew when I was leaving and I was going home. So, but like I said, it didn't feel right. So I finally, one day I wrote one more letter and I told God, I said, look, I don't know what to do. I need some help making the decision. If you want me to go to Kingdom Towers, I'll get an acceptance letter. And ironically enough, a God thing, however you want to put it, that night I got a letter from Kingdom Towers saying that I was accepted here. Scared to death, because I had to call my wife that night and tell her I wasn't coming home. So I called her and I talked to her. During the time that this was happening, we were on a COVID lockdown, so we only got a few minutes on the telephone. So I called her and she was really, really upset. Did not understand. Mad at me. She said, we've gone through all this stuff trying to get you set up to go home, all this stuff, and now you tell me you're not coming home. She said, I don't get it. And I said, pray about it. She said, I don't want to pray about it. She said, I'm mad. She was mad. She was really mad. And so we got off the phone with I love yous like we always do. Sometimes she gets mad and doesn't say that just to get at me. But anyway, I said, I love you. She said, I love you too. I said, I'll talk to you in the morning. So I called her back that next morning. I just happened to be able to get on the telephone before I had to go to my job there in prison. And she said, I thought about it last night and prayed about it. And she said, one of two things will happen if you go there. She said, you will do good and come home to me, or you will do good and stay there. She said, either way, I'll know. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand what she meant, and I do now, because she said, if it's meant to be, you'll come home to me. She said, you need to go there. So I did that. And she told me many years ago, she said, I love you so much. She said that I want you to be okay whether we're together or not. Which made me mad at the time she said it, because I'm like, you don't want to be with me? She said, no, that's not what I said. She's by far the smartest person I've ever met, and this has been a great decision for me to stay here. I've talked to my parents about it several times. Right after I got out, they came out here and brought me some tools, drove 8 hours, brought me some tools, brought my son with them to see me. And I've talked to my mom and dad several, I talk to them regularly. And my mom told me, it's probably been 2 or 3 months ago, I said, I think I did the right thing staying there. She said, 100% you did the right thing staying there. She said, 100%. She said, if you would have gone home directly out of prison, she said it wouldn't last long. She said, you'd have been right back. She said, something would have happened, something wouldn't have gone right, you wouldn't have taken it right. She said, 100% you're in the right spot. And I've got a really good job here as a diesel mechanic. Not really diesel, we don't do much trucks, but it's semi-trailers. We restore them, weld. I do all the mechanical stuff, and I'm shop foreman, so it's really good.
So how has Kingdom Towers helped you, like, prevent you from going back to prison? How has Kingdom Towers helped you overcome the obstacles that you face as being a person on parole or formerly incarcerated and with felonies?
I got out, I was scared to death, didn't know what to do, had no idea what I was going to do, but I had a plan. I knew, well, I got to do this, I got to do that. And Steve Taylor, the morning after, Steve was the one that picked me up from the Montford unit here. The very next morning I met him in his office, said, hey, we need to go do this, we need to go do that. He said, you need to sit down. And he said, I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to tell you two things. He said, number one, he said, when you walk into this place, you're entering into God's business, and I expect you not to disrespect it. He said, number two, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I'll never forget those two things. And I was worried about driver's license and birth certificates and social security cards and a job, and he said, you need to slow down. So we talked for, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, I can't remember. Sitting in his office. He said, now let's go. I said, where are we going? He said, just come on. You know, I thought I was going to tell him what we needed to do because I knew I have to do this. So we left. Hour later, I had a driver's license and I had a birth certificate, and I had to have those things to work, you know, because I needed proof of this, that, and other. And we got back that evening, and he said, what did you learn today? I said, I learned to listen. And the classes here are good. It helps me to see and share with people that I'm not the only one that's made mistakes. I'm not the only, I always thought I was unique. I thought nobody else drank like me, or nobody else did methamphetamines like me, or nobody else. There's people as crazy as I am. And it's, you know, I go to AA meetings regularly. I speak at, I've been a speaker nights at AA meetings. I've spoken at several of those. It helps me to share what I'm going through and what I've been through. And I've noticed that as I speak, that things are changing, because at first it was everything from the past and what I did and funny stories they're funny now, but they weren't funny at the time, you know. But they're changing now because my recovery is getting better. So I've got recovery stories now. I've got things that I've learned, which this place is, there's structure here. There's rules here. There's a curfew here. And there's a lot of guys that are upset because, well, you know, 10 o'clock curfew. Well, if you're out, with me anyway, if you're out past 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night on the weekends, you're up to no good. You know, unless you're at work. You know, there's supposed to be work at night, I get that. But my wife's always said nothing good ever comes from being out after 8 o'clock at night. You know, that's pushing it a little bit. But it would suit her if she never went outside. So, but the structure, just the fact that God is in charge, it's obvious when you talk to Steve and the guys that work here and the volunteers that come out and preach and share and teach and all that stuff, that there's a lot of love here. These people care about us as people, not as felons. They love us as they love us where we are.
I'm going to ask you one more question. Other than turning your will and your life over to God, probably the best decision you've ever made in your life, where do you rate coming here to Kingdom Towers in your life decisions?
It's hard to say this, but it was a great decision to marry my wife. It was great having kids. It was a great decision to go to college. It was a great decision to do all these things that led to great things. But where I am right now, this has probably been the best decision I've ever made, because I'm in better shape physically, mentally, spiritually, mostly spiritually, than I have ever been. and it's just because God's here. And there's people that come here that mess up. It happens because they're not, they're gonna do it their way. And I've done it my way. I'll be 50 years old in 2 years. Ooh. And I've done it my way for 48 years, and for 48 years it's not worked out. I mean, I've been at the top of the world, I've been at the bottom of the world, and right now, even away from my family, I'm top of the world. And when it's time to go home, God let me know.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
No problem.